There's a couple topics I'd like to still get to and a couple questions we might have to get to rapid fire for everybody to answer. But one of the big ones, AI in the music industry. And there's multiple sides to this. AI tools that you might be using in your office to streamline, optimize your work, do research, pile reports, whatever that might be. But then, of course, AI generated music and being uploaded to DSPs and taking market share from real musicians. And then the nuances within that, using those systems as a part of the process versus that's iterative and is still very much human control, just that as you might use synthesizers and programming and other automated tools versus people that are typing in a text prompt and hitting upload to DSPs. So there's a lot that could be tackled there, but I would love to hear kind of how each of you would take your view or whatever commentary you'd like to add on what's happening in your space with AI.
So I'll jump on this. As a distributor, we're very, very in tune with AI as it applies to our day-to-day functioning of the tasks and the things that we're able to utilize it for and to leverage to make us quicker and more efficient, as well as its role in the creative process. I think it's important that all of the folks watching this take into consideration that the U.S. Copyright Office has ruled on AI. AI is not copyrightable. So if you create something 100% with AI, you may not copyright it, which means you may not monetize. And the tools being implemented and used to figure out what's AI and what's not are getting better and better and more effective. We, as a distributor, have brought on, much like the copyright registration forms, voluntary disclosures into our distribution that ask, what portion of this was created with AI? Was any of it created with AI? I think AI as a tool is fantastic, but it shouldn't replace the creative process of the human element. And that's kind of my stance and symphonic stance at large.
Can I ask you a question? I think because I'm a dummy when it comes to this sort of stuff. When you said it's not monetizable, does that mean, because I always thought, okay, you can't copyright it, meaning anybody can also monetize your AI music, but it still means that it gets paid when it's streamed, correct?
Well, so there's a lot of distributors who are refusing to touch anything that's AI. The DSPs are going to end up cracking down on it. Do you think Spotify is going to pay you for AI? Come on.
I mean, no, I would love that. Hey, I'm not taking sides here. I'm just wondering. I just got a question.
Yeah. Industry plant likes AI, everybody. No, it's the Wild West right now. I mean, right now, detection is the hard part.
Yeah.
So that's why disclosure is such a big piece of the discussion. If we're all fooling ourselves if we think that there's not going to be tools created that absolutely detect AI. And like I teach at Belmont, there are tools that we can utilize and run term papers through to pull up likelihood that it was created with ChatGPT. Very, very easy. There's very, very easy detection tools on text alone. So to think that that's not going to get flipped and deployed on the music side so that the DSPs don't have to pay for things, I think is foolish. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they're going to not pay for as much as they can not pay for. And I don't mean to pick on Spotify because we distribute to 230 DSPs. If they can get away with not paying for it, they're not going to pay for it.
Well, I mean, does it really matter to them, though? Either way, they're paying out the same portion of the pie. Do they really care if it's going out to somebody who created a prompt versus a real artist?
I mean, that's a semantic question. But if we're going to ask that question, then let's also ask why they've put the content rules in that they put in with regards to not monetizing things like lo-fi and ambient music.
Fair. That's a good point.
There's a lot of things that have happened in the last year or two, and I'm not going to pick on any one DSP because several of them have moved the goalposts because that's what happens. But those DSPs move those goalposts so that monetization rates are much lower on certain genres. So why would they do that? If they're going to do that, why wouldn't they go after machine created music?
I think they should. And one of my favorite pastimes is going to the subreddits for these people who create these AI generated songs and reading about how frustrated they are that nobody's listening to their music. That brings me so much joy because I'm like, well, welcome to the show. They thought they would just put out music and people would just listen.
Well, and there's a new company that's popped up called Humanable, which is a company that we're actually partnered with it's kind of like a USDA stamp that says this was human created, and they'll litigate against people who take that stamp and utilize it and who are not.
That's cool.
actually not actually human created, because what they're trying to do is really draw a line in the sand to say, hey, real creatives with real hearts and their beating chests and real brains in their heads created this music over here, so let's give it love. Whereas some of the machine created things over here, we maybe don't want to give as much love to as an audience. It's still early days though. Like I said, it's the Wild West.
Yeah, we're big believers that, AI shouldn't replace human creativity on any front. And unfortunately, that should word is in there, and that's it's a little out of our control, right? Like that's our ethos, and that's where we're coming from. And I think the monetization copyright issue on AI probably means that for mainstream DSPs and the normie places, that'll largely get cracked down on. It probably still siphons from the pool in some way, but like that's probably not the big issue moving forward. That stands for 100, at least from my understanding, it stands for 100% AI created music where you type in a prompt, say like, make me a song, something like that. What's more complicated, and I think will be very interesting, is stuff like these Suno creators, who I think you could make an argument are maybe closer to an EDM artist than an AI artist. And how do we want to, as an industry, accept and interact with those artists? I've seen a lot of people fall by the wayside of thinking, "Hey, this ain't music." That's a pretty big graveyard in this industry, and we're always challenging ourselves to not get stuck in that way of thinking. So we're pretty open-minded on creativity. I think there's an optimistic story here to open up a lot of creativity that's been locked up. If you're a talented songwriter who has ideas but don't know how to play an instrument, this is what an amazing universe this has opened up for you. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of garbage in there, but there's going to be some really amazing gems in there too. And probably some of the more interesting creativity in the future will be AI augmented or something. Who knows? So we're trying to make sure our artists are prepared for this. All I think though in the short term is it reinforces the stuff that we've all been saying. If you're playing anonymous music where like your value proposition was I played the guitar competently, AI has already killed you, right? That's done. Nobody's TV shows are giving you $1,000 for a little guitar lick leading into commercial. Like all that stuff's over. But if you can find a way to mean something to people, this AI stuff is largely not a competitor to that in any way. And you might find ways to use it that help you tell your story that you find quite valuable, allow you to do more stuff.
Yeah, I don't think AI can replace. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, sorry. I was going to kind of touch on something from the other side of the aisle as far as from a listener perspective of and listener experience. So I think that's one thing that I often think about is with algorithmic suggesting, and sorry that we're again picking on Spotify, but we're getting to a point of the snake eating its own tail when it comes to like different radio functions or algorithmic suggesting when it comes to a certain genre where it's almost becoming a flat plane and there's a lack of true music discovery or fan affinity, which is ironic coming from the same platform that talks about 2% of super listeners account for like 50% of merch and ticket sales for a lot of artists. So needing to have that artist to fan connection is super important. So I think that there is going to be a critical mass when it comes to those types of things. But I do think there are some really great usages of AI when it comes to a listener experience. For one, I think the idea of like day list being a huge game changer for Spotify and having a better understanding of how music integrates into people's daily lives and knowing that it's not always going to be someone completely focused on that moment and tracking their life instead.
Yeah, I mean, AI can't replace like a human experience or an emotional connection, or even it can't do a live performance for you. But separating from, I think, that side of the AI to the other side where it is a tool. I know at Fixed, James and I both use ChatGPT. It's great for research. It's great for doing certain things. It's not a replacement. It is a tool. It is an add-on to what you're already doing, in my opinion.
I know artists who struggle to write great copy in their own voice. And so they'll literally train AI on their own voice and be like, can you write me something about this? I need to post this today. And it'll do it in their own voice. And I don't blame them. It's like, it's so much work. And so like using it as a tool in that capacity, I actually don't even mind how writers, I mean, Nashville, big songwriting city, they'll write songs. They will implement it through Suno to write in the voice of, Blake Sheldon to pitch to him. Like, that's not what's going out the door, but it's giving Blake a better idea of what makes sense for him. And I don't think that's such a bad thing.
Well, we've got about 10 minutes. I want to hit a couple quick fire questions. Connor, what is your favorite data or analytics source to look at? What data or analytics do you care about in your role?
Are we talking about like a software source or like
Like what specific piece of data, regardless of what the source is? But if you have a suggestion on a
Yeah, I think everything that you should be thinking about when it comes to data of listener behavior and kind of health of your fan base should be surrounding of intention, conversion, and retention. How many people are you putting in front of you? How many people that have been put in front of you are you then converting into fans or listeners? How many of them are making further intentions, saving music, pre-saving your albums, buying your tickets, having, and how many of them are coming back repeatedly? That is how you build a foundation. Everything should surround that. Spotify, you have your segmentations on Spotify for artists of your super listeners versus your moderate listeners versus your light listeners. When it comes to active listening, you have your streams per listener. You can look at YouTube with your average playtime that people have on the different content that you upload or music that you upload. Apple, you can look at, and reason type, you can look at Shazams. All of those are different avenues of boiling down to the same thing when it comes to intention, retention, and conversion.
Ian, at Hopeless, you have a legacy in certain genres, but in recent years, I've seen you guys experimenting with some new genres, bringing in some new sounds. But how do you guys think about genre versus culture in terms of what you're doing with your signings and A&R process?
Yeah, culture is a good way to put it. Culture oriented versus sound oriented, and it's something we've seen change over the years. The label started as a pretty straightforward SoCal punk and ska label that then had Avenged Sevenfold, and then went to At All Time Low, and it all over the place within that little community. And we've always been comfortable doing that. And over time, we really found that Hopeless's core strength is helping unique artists build careers that are meaningful to them and long term and valuable, and focusing on those brands. So the difference between an Avenged Sevenfold, an All Time Low, a Neck Deep, a Scene Queen, a TX2, I don't see a difference at all. These are all strong brands that have great relationships with fans and mean something and take up a place in their community that matters. And Hopeless as a label really exists to serve that and enable that, make that grow bigger. So that's the sort of common thread that we see. And over maybe the past 10 years or so, as listening habits have changed, streaming's a big part of this, where, when I was a kid, you only listen to this kind of music. And, if the other kids you didn't talk to, that kind of thing. And now the playlist generation, that's probably a 10-year-old story at this point also. So kids are listening to all sorts of stuff. We've really looked at this more as a lifestyle and community-based organization. And if there's an alternative kid out there who needs to be spoken to, we're kind of here for that. And we're open to that sound being, could be lots of different things.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian. Curtis, Fixed has embraced, a hybrid model as a label, publisher, and merch company. How do you think about the diversity of services a label must offer to attract talent in the current ecosystem?
I think you do have to be pretty diverse. I mean, I think a lot of companies are kind of trying to be everything to everyone. And I know Randall, you might have mentioned, but that white glove experience, I think that's very important. So being able to kind of, especially in what we're trying to accomplish as a label, but helping artists grow and maintain their careers, being able to help them out with their merch, their distribution, their sync, their everything like that. I think it's very important to just not pigeonhole yourself into doing one thing.
And Dustin, what's an unconventional tactic you've used recently or over your career to really connect artists online with digital marketing or content, something that you wouldn't expect?
I talked about this the other day. I think using ads in a unique way that people don't expect. Some of my best advertising is when the content is just completely out of pocket, run at unique times of day. I had one artist that we literally just had him look at the phone while his music played while he was on the toilet. And we've only played it between 1 and 3 a.m. And he was like, "Why are you up watching me on the toilet listening to my music?" And it just went bananas. I think out of pocket stuff like that, so many artists, when they run ads or their labels, they're almost trying to be more like brands and big brands when they should go the other way with it and just be crazy and outlandish. We watch these musicians be characters and excel at it, but then they're afraid to do the same thing. So
Great. Randall, As I've watched Symphonic over the years, you guys have some incredible educational content in your blog and emails. And even not being a client currently using it, I still look at what you guys put out and find value in it. What are some of the key educational pieces that you put out that people might not realize you guys put time and effort into?
That's a great question. I wasn't aware that our blog was as good as it was until I saw a competitor's blog quoting our blog and linking back to us, which is the highest form of compliment. All the best information with Symphonic starts at the blog. And the blog is blog.symphonic.com, I believe. I hope I got that URL right. We have full-time staff that all they do is create articles, and the articles are all topical, and they're all, touching on new items in the industry, whether it be AI or spatial audio or, hashtags that you've got to use in 2025 in your Instagram posts. It's really, really good stuff. And it's something we're really proud of, because of where we started from an artist who didn't know what he was doing. The whole goal is artist empowerment. It's in all of our values statements for the company, is that we will empower independent artists. And so part of that is helping to educate them. In addition to the blog, we do seminars and symposiums from time to time. We do continuing education kind of events. And if you are a part of the blog, then you'll know about that. So if you subscribe there, you'll know what we're doing there. Outside of the blog, for any Symphonic users that are there, there's a website that's very helpful called symphonic.help. And what that is a knowledge base that is leveraged and utilized by my entire support staff. And it's really one of those tools where if you know it exists, you can get the answer to any question you have. Hey, man, what DPI artwork should I load up for Symphonic? I don't even know. I'm about to bounce this down out of Canvas. What DPI do I need? Boom, you search it. It's a wiki. It brings back the answer and it takes you exactly what you need to know. Now, this is for navigating Symphonic specifically, but there's also bigger at large statements within that around marketing strategy and release strategy, go to market strategy. So I urge folks to look in on that as well. But educating and empowering artists is core to our existence and is something that by the way, thanks for calling it out, because it's something we're very proud of.